thank you for joining us for our fourth installment of our cooking class. Today we're going to do a Native American dish. It's called Three Sisters Stew and fry bread. And we're very excited about it. But first I'm going to turn it over to our sponsors, Maine Gate United and Dr. Jim Clump.
And thank you for all of you for coming. We hope that this is an exciting time. This is like Shelley said, this is our fourth installment of a cooking class. We wanted to showcase the cuisine of New Mexico, and this is just one example of that, and we hope that this will build, and then as we do more cooking classes, we can expand into other things, you know, Chinese and Italian, things like that. But I'd like to thank you all for coming out and participating. We think this is a lot of fun. This is kind of what our function is at Maine Gate, to unite the communities of Alamogordo and Holloman and let you all know what is available and things to do here in the area. So thank you all for coming, and I hope you enjoy the class. And I'll turn that everything over to Annette right now. So thank you all and enjoy.
All righty then. Okay. So like Dr. Clump said, you know, this is, we started off with New Mexico cuisine, and mostly because I represent all the cultures that we have here in New Mexico. Hispanic, Native American, and even some Anglo. So there's those three cultures that are here in New Mexico, and I actually represent all three. So with that, we're going to get started. The first thing that we're going to actually start with is our fry bread. And the reason that we're starting with the bread first, the dough needs to sit for a little bit, okay? Because it kind of needs that baking powder, which is a leavening agent, and it needs, we need to let that kind of rise up a little bit. So that's what we're going to start first with today. You're going to take your 2 cups of flour, and you're going to pour that in the bowl. This is 1 tablespoon of baking powder. All right, so you put a teaspoon of salt.
That is not premedicated salt. Not premedicated salt. That is premedicated.
Measure your salt, 1 teaspoon. Tablespoon of powdered milk. As you have this in here in this bowl, all of the ingredients are pretty much in that bowl, and all you need to do is just get your hands dirty, although mine are gloved just because of purposes here. Just mix all of that around in your bowl with your hand. You're going to get your hand in there too. So then with that, we're going to get a 1/4 cup of oil or shortening. Now, traditionally, we use like lard or manteca, which is shortening. It's the same thing, but today we're going to use oil. I'm going to do a 1/4 cup of oil and pour that in there. Okay, and then now we're going to get a cup of warm water. And then as you pour in there, just mix it around. And it's not quite the full cup yet. So we're just putting a little bit at a time and making a nice soft dough. Okay, so if you guys have, you should have in your bowl 2 cups of flour, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, a teaspoon of salt, a tablespoon of dry milk, a 1/4 cup of oil or shortening, and then some of the warm water to make a dough, a nice soft dough. Now this dough is going to be a little wetter. And if you pour your water very slowly, when you get to the water, pour it very slowly so that you mix all of that in there to make a nice dough to where it comes off the bowl. It's going to come off the edges of the bowl. Now if you look inside my bowl, I have, it's cleaning the edges of the bowl. And we have a nice soft dough. And we just need to knead that around a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit more water. I'm just taking a little bit with my hand and putting it in the bowl. So as you pour your water into that bowl, it's going to come off the edges of your bowl. And you guys will have a nice, soft looking dough. So you see mine? It's just dough like that, so that needs to sit. And I'm just gonna cover it with a towel a little bit. I usually use plastic, so I'm gonna put a little plastic over it and then the towel. And then the towel, just like that. So I'm gonna let that sit while we prepare our Three Sisters stew. Now that our dough is set aside, we can start on the stew, okay? And with the stew, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna heat up my hot pan right here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna pour in just a little bit of oil. And I'm gonna start off with my beef. And this is just beef tips, and so we've cut that into smaller pieces, and so we're just going to brown this, and then we use a little bit of salt and pepper on that as well. So that's going to start to cook and brown. And I'm going to add in a little bit of salt. And then a little bit of pepper. Okay, pots. You can do this in the pot. As Native Americans, we grew all our own food. So the story goes where there's three sisters, and one of the sisters is corn. One of the sisters is beans, and another sister is squash. Now, when you grow these three sister gardens that we used to grow many moons ago, the corn gets planted first, because the corn, it takes about 21 weeks before it's ready to harvest. So you plant that first. Then underneath the corn sister is going to take care of her smaller sister, the bean. And the bean will go around the corn, okay? The bean needs something to climb onto, and so that's why the corn sister is there. The bean sister climbs onto the corn sister for support. Around the outside of that is the squash sister. The squash sister is planted around the bean sister, so because the squash sister, she has big leaves, and the big leaves shade the bean sister, and it protects all three sisters, all the other two sisters, because squash has like a little pokey outside to it, and so when animals come to try to eat it, they don't like to eat the leaf of the leaf and the stalk of the squash, because it has those little prickly things on it, and animals do not like that, so they stay away, and so the squash sister protects the other two sisters as well. So that's the kind of the legend behind our Three Sisters stew. So you guys should have cloves of garlic. The way to crack open that garlic is to just put your knife on it and just crack it open a little bit, and that peels off real easily, just like that. So that's how that peels off. Then you're going to cut the growing tip where the garlic grows, and you're going to cut that off. And I'm using 3 cloves of garlic. Okay, we want minced garlic, so all you're going to do is take the garlic and just start chopping it a little bit. Chopping it up a little bit. All 3. Yep. And then you can put your knife on it and mince it up a little bit more. Then once you've smashed that, and all that really does is it brings out the oils in that garlic, but we're going to mince it a little bit more. Once you have the garlic minced, and all chopped up. Then we're going to set that aside on your cutting board. And we can start with this right here is a cebolla. Cebolla means onion in Spanish. So once you're done with your garlic, pick up your cebolla. So we're going to cut off the ends of the onion. Okay. You could cut off one end of the onion. The other end will keep it together if you want to do it that way. But I usually cut off both ends. Okay. Then you just kind of slit the outside of the onion. Give it a little slit on the outside. And then you peel that outside layer. We don't want that outside layer. They grow in the fields. We don't know where it's been. Then you can cut your onion in half. Put them flat side down so they don't roll or rock. And then you can just start slicing them one way. And then turn it the opposite direction and slice it the opposite way. So now we have some cebolla. If you look in my pan, we've got our beef tips going. And they're just, what we want is we just want them kind of browned. Kind of like that. This pan is not very hot. That's why my finger's in there. But this is what we want them to look like. My meat is browned. It's got a little bit of red in there. Do you see that? That's okay. That is a-okay, because what we're going to do is we're going to put this in some beef stock, and we're going to cook. It's going to sit in the beef stock, and it's going to cook in there as well. So all I'm going to do to this point is I am going to put this meat in here. I'm keeping in, you notice I'm keeping in all of that oil, and there's a little bit of beef juice in there. That's okay. We want that in there because then what we're going to do is we're going to put that back on the heat, and this is where our garlic and onions start to go. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to put the garlic and the onion, and we're going to sweat the garlic first. So when I say sweat the garlic, that just means putting it in this oil and letting it sweat out some of that flavor. The oils in the garlic is going to sweat out of it, and it's going to make everything more flavorful. So that's what we're doing here in that hot grease. So once this is just kind of sweated out, it'll start to brown up a little bit, which is what it's doing now. If you notice, when I first put it in, it was white, but now it's got a little bit of yellow tinge to it, and that means that garlic is sweating out all of those garlic oils, and it's beginning to expel all of the flavor in there. So now once we've sweated that out, I'm going to put that kind of in the middle, and I'm going to put in all the onion. This was half an onion. So now we're going to saute these onions. We're going to saute these onions until they are nice and, see how that garlic is nice and yellow? So now we have the beef in here. So I'm going to add the beef stock, and we're going to start to heat that up. I'm just going to pour that in there. Okay, so this is the onions and the garlic, and they've been sauteing. I'm going to let them go a little bit longer here because I want a translucent look to this. And translucent just means that these onions are going from that white, bright color all the way to this clear translucent color. So that's what I'm kind of looking for. Once your garlic and onions are all sauteed, then this too is going to go into this pot. And this, we poured the beef broth into there, so that meat has been soaking into that. And we're going to add the onions and the garlic. Okay, just stir that in and leave that there. So what we did was we took the squash, we made it flat on one surface so that it's easy to work with, and then you just slice like this, which this is basically slicing into just a basic country cut, which the country cut is it's a thicker piece. We're going a little bit thinner than that country cut, so it's just like a slice but country cut. And then all of this squash, we're going to saute all of this squash together. And we also have some different colors here, which is what we like too. Now once we put the tomatoes with this, it's going to make a real pretty stew. All right, so now I'm going to get my pan. I'm going to add a little bit more of that oil. Put it back on my stove. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take all of that squash and we're going to saute that. Now this is going to saute a little more translucent and a little more soft. So on my squash, it's taking its sweet time here because I have a slow burner. But if you look inside here just a little bit, that squash right here is starting to get a little more look at this one, translucent, and that one looks pretty good. And even if it's a little browned, that brownness because this is the same pan that I used for the onions and the garlic, and it's still scooping up some of those leftover oils and flavors. That one's another good one. See how we got that one going? Right there, that's what we're looking for. Okay, so mine is starting to come together. There's still a few pieces that are white and not translucent, but all of this looks pretty good. As soon as it's browned and translucent, nice and tender like that, that's when we can put it into our pot. And remember, our pot has the onions and the beef, and if you can look at it, it's simmering now, and that's kind of what we want. We want it to simmer in there. So I'm going to go ahead and transfer it over, and all I'm going to do, and if you make this at home, you can just have a frying pan separate, and it's going to go right into the pot. Okay, so far now we only have one sister in there. So now with the sister squash, we need to add sister corn, okay? And so what we have here is we have a can of corn that has been drained. And we're just going to add that into our stew. Add the whole can. And we're going to add sister beans, which this is black beans. And it's just one regular can of black beans. And if you look in there, there's that nice color coming together. Because when we cook, we like to cook with color as well. We have a can of pinto beans as well. This is another sister here. And then we have a can of navy beans because they're white and so now we have all three sisters in there. We're going to add a little bit more color with the tomatoes. We're going to put in the whole can of diced tomatoes. And then, for those of you who like that New Mexican flavor, the green chili. can add that in there. Okay, now you can add a little bit of cumin to that. Just a sprinkle of some cumin, a little salt, especially to take down the acid of some of those tomatoes. And then we're just going to stir all that around. Now if you see the colors all coming together, beautiful colors. So now this is going to simmer for about 20 minutes. Got a fistful of dough, okay? And what you're going to do is you're just going to kind of round it with the fatty part of your hands right in here. You're going to take that and kind of press it and press it out. And then we're just going to make that bigger and bigger. Okay, then you can put it down onto your cutting board and pull it out so that it's a little bit flatter. And then it's going to be nice and round like that. Flip it over and start to pull it out rounder. Okay. When we go to put this in the fryer, there is going to be, we are going to need to poke a hole in it. Usually we put a hole on purpose kind of in the middle. So then you can do that with the rest of your dough. So we're going to let this get to, it's going to get to about 350 degrees or so. There we go. I'll let that go. So the tester is cooking, and you see how it floats up to the top, and it should turn a golden brown. So these degrees right here it should reach about 350 or so degrees. If you have a oil thermometer, make sure you do that. Also, if you're going to do this indoors, make sure that you have an exhaust fan going. Make sure that it is a pot that has bigger edges. Normally we would do this outside, however today is a windy day. We would do it outside with like a turkey cooker with a propane tank. So that's the norm. But again, if you do it indoors, please make sure you do it in a rounded pot. A pot looks like this. A pan has the long handle. So there's our little mini fry bread. I'm frying it until it's a little golden brown here. And it's hot enough to cook, but it's not quite there a little bit. Need to get a little bit hotter. Get here, and you can just kind of slide it in there. Whoop. There we go. And there's your fry bread. Guys, this is what we made today. We made some fry bread. We made some Three Sisters stew. If you look inside here, you can see that it's all nice and simmered and cooked. And it's got the Three Sisters. There's some beans, some corn, and squash right in there. And then right there you can see also the beef in it too. Traditionally we do use lamb, but I like beef, so we did beef today. It's really good. Really good. And fry bread finishes out the meal. Perfect meal for any day. Thank you guys. Have a good today and a better tomorrow.